You might be thinking, how can I feel safe in this economy? How can I feel safe if no big institution are really taking my needs into consideration and are ready to help me? How can I feel safe and secure if this economy is about to collapse? And how can I be safe if no man can be trusted really? What should I do even? Because this uncertainty is really killing me and driving me nuts. What can I do? So if you're asking these questions, these are totally normal questions because that's the time we basically live in, the time of the biggest uncertainty. And not as if this uncertainty didn't exist before, of course it existed always, but the relationships that we have with uncertainty now are the most difficult relationships that we ever had in our life. And so if you have 10 more minutes today, we will discuss how we can rebuild these relationships with uncertainty and how we can help us to live through this time with the least amount of uncertainty and as emotionally stable as possible, while understanding that this fear of uncertainty actually comes from a much deeper place that is hidden in our childhood. Hello, my name is Sophie from Co-Awakened, and here we learn how to recover after abuse and reconnect with our emotions in order to feel alive again. What is uncertainty, first of all? Well, the uncertainty is the state where the person can't rely on anything really, where everything is unpredictable and foggy. It's like you need to go from point A to point B, and the road to point B is unclear. You don't know whether you will be able to get to point B because you don't know neither the road nor the vehicle. Like nothing is certain. But if we go even deeper than that, if we go into this definition even deeper than that, we will realize that at the base of this definition lies the fear of not being able to meet your needs in some way or another, be that basic needs of food and shelter, or some more complex needs like emotional safety. So uncertainty becomes the inability to understand whether you will be able to cover your needs. So this is the question of needs in the first place. But if we go even deeper than that and we realize that there is a belief, a perception in our mind that the needs won't be covered because we have an experience of our needs not being covered, then we can actually realize that we have a certain blueprint in our mind, a certain experience that, our needs won't be covered because it is what happened during my childhood. And as we discussed in one of our previous videos, belief systems are the things that form the perception of our reality. Note how I formulate that. They form the perception of our reality, not the absolute reality, but rather how we perceive that through the lens of our unique experience. And not only our unique experience, but our family's unique experience. If from generation to generation you had an experience that rich people can't be trusted, that money can't be trusted, and you got the proof of it again and again, of course for you it became something like an absolute truth. But what if there is another possibility? And how we make this possibility appear in our life? Well, first of all, let's circle back to our childhood. Since the childhood becomes the blueprint of how we perceive our reality, because we are taught to perceive it that way, well, if we work with our childhood traumas, we will open new possibilities for new kind of experiences to appear. Again, if you want to learn how to work on belief systems in depth, I made very practical video on that. You can watch that on my channel. But in short, let's have an example. You were bullied at school when you were a child, and so you came to your parents and you asked, "Please, mom, please, dad, I've been bullied. Please help me." And your parents, instead of actually admitting the reality of you being bullied, of really sympathizing you with this problem, acknowledging that it's real, coming up with certain ways of how it can be handled, and actually doing their own deep emotional work on how they maybe treat you. Maybe they didn't give you enough attention. That's why you didn't have enough self-worth. That's why you have this bully right now chasing you. No, instead of that, they actually either abandoned you altogether and said, well, that's life, kid, nothing we can do. Or they started to initiate some process of, we will talk to the school principal, we will talk to the parents of the kid. So they do that, but then they abandon it altogether. But since the resolution wasn't found and you keep facing the same kind of problem, the same bullying, you come to your parents once again for help and they are like, well, sorry, kid, nothing we can do really. So you are faced alone and abandoned with this pain. And so you see, You already learned this blueprint of your needs not being covered. You tried to appeal to your parents so that they could help you, but they didn't. And they abandoned you in some way, shape, or form. And so you never saw the resolution of your need being covered. You never saw you getting from point A to point B. You either started to go from point A to point B, but then you've got lost, or point B was never an option for you in the first place. So it's very traumatic and very sad realization that you learn that the closest and the nearest people to you can abandon you like that. And of course, what can you expect then from the rest of the world? Of course it will abandon you. And so you see, the question of this safety, this certainty, becomes the question of relationships, becomes the question of abandonment, whether you will be abandoned. First, we need to heal that, to forgive our parents, to understand that they didn't act in our best interest because they weren't capable of, or they weren't willing to. But they did that because of their own trauma, and their trauma is their trauma. But now it's your responsibility to heal your trauma. And so if you manage to do that, thanks to different processes like completion process or anything else, you will realize there is another option available, that actually there are people who can help. There are reliable people who can be found. Yes, of course, it will take some time to find them, to build proper relationships with them, because real trustworthy relationships are not built in one day. It is possible, and we need to teach our brain that there is another option available, so that it became a new option in our reality, so that we could see this option and act upon it. But again, for that, we need to heal childhood traumas around abandonment first. And most importantly, we need to learn how to stop abandoning ourselves as well. So it means that you come to terms that life won't be certain. There is not a moment in our life where everything is 100% certain and predictable. Because you know what? You can actually die anytime because of some kind of a blood clot that is hanging around in your brain right now. And it can blow up any second. So there is no guarantee. We act as if there are guarantees, but there aren't any. We think that control might provide us with more certainty and more guarantees, but it's not. The more you try to control things, the more the reality actually gathers this momentum in order to snap you back into reality. And it's not a pleasant experience. It's the experience when you lose your family, you get into a car crash, you got fired from the job that you thought is yours, your relationships fall apart, your health might let you down. So there is nothing really certain. But when you heal, you realize that despite all of this uncertainty, it doesn't mean that you won't be able to find your place in this world. It doesn't mean that you won't be able to find solutions to different problems that might occur during these uncertain times. It doesn't mean that good people won't appear in your life. You can't guarantee that. But now for you it becomes an option, and not just a fear-based option based on hope, but rather, paradoxically, this certainty that everything that you need will appear when you need it, like people, places, resources, money, etc. So, to feel certain, to feel safe, you need to heal the trauma of abandonment and re-establish trustworthy relationships with your own self. Stop abandoning self. And this abandonment of self issues, they are very complex because we love to abandon ourselves just purely from the physical point of view. We eat poorly, we sleep poorly, we ignore our biological rhythms of our body because, of course, the outside world is built like that. Then we abandon ourselves emotionally wise. We think that we can either live completely alone or treat other people like resources rather than real human beings with real feelings. Or we abandon ourselves in terms of really basic needs that we all have and ignore that we are simple human beings rather than robots that can overperform and overachieve all the time. Until we recognize that, accept that, and start building our life around that, around our basic needs, around acknowledging that we are human, that we need to be treated as such, well, nothing will change. The uncertainty will frighten us because we are alone and abandoned. But re-establishing these relationships with self, re-establishing relationships with other people, building some kind of communities, even neighbors, is already a step in this direction. So I hope this video made you a little bit hopeful and a little bit certain about the fact how to work with uncertainty. Because again, uncertainty is the question of abandonment. It's not just a question of providing more money or providing more physical resources, although of course it's an important part of it. But again, you can build a bunker, preserve all the food in the world, but still something won't work out. You will need to get some help from someone. So you can't predict everything, you can't control everything. You can't put every pillow under every corner of your life. So it's better just recognize that you can look at this problem through another lens of another belief system. That is, yes, from the one hand is certainly less certain, but from the other hand will provide you with more safety and stability than money can provide. It's all a question of relationships. Relationships to you, relationships to people around you. And when you feel certain about those things, everything will fall into place. So I see you next Thursday and Sunday on this channel, and hopefully you will feel a little bit safer next time.